Hi candidates, welcome to another session of Manifested Online Classes. We are still continuing with our syllabus coverage, and in this particular session, I want us to look on an issue to do with a proposal or even a recommendation to update or even to revise, to make some changes as far as the existing accounting standards are concerned. And in this case, we are going to look on some of the factors which can drive or which can cause an existing accounting standard to be changed, or even some of the factors which can make the various stakeholders to recommend a new accounting standard to be issued. But maybe to start with, it is important to note that in the field of accounting and also financial reporting, it is important for the existing standard to be periodically reviewed, so that those particular standards can be updated to ensure that they are relevant, they are also clear, and also they are consistent with the financial reporting practice, or basically they are consistent with the current financial reporting practice. So therefore, maybe as an introduction, we can say in the field of accounting and also financial reporting, there is a need to review and update existing accounting standards, to review and update existing accounting standards, so that they will be consistent. They will be consistent with the current. They will be consistent with the current reporting practice. They'll be consistent with the current reporting practice. So therefore, there is always that particular need for the accounting standards which have already been issued to be reviewed and also updated. And majorly these are a responsibility of the International Accounting Standard Board. And actually, the Accounting Standard Board will review and also maybe update or make some changes to an existing accounting standard after receiving some feedback from the stakeholders, of which this particular feedback can be given to this particular body, the International Accounting Standard Board, either to issue a new accounting standard or to revise or to update the existing one due to a number of reasons. Reasons. So therefore, maybe first of all, we can say that proposal to revise or issue a new accounting standard, that is a proposal to revise or issue a new accounting standards are received by International Accounting Standard Board, from various stakeholders. From various stakeholders. So meaning that we have various stakeholders like the professional accountants, like the financial analysts, and even the users of the financial statement themselves. They can recommend that some of the existing standards to be revised, to be changed, or maybe a new accounting standard to be issued. Mostly a recommendation may come through for a new accounting standard to be issued, maybe due to some of the emerging issues. Like currently we know we have so many emerging issues, like issues to do with cyber security, issues to do with digital currency. All these are emerging issues which may require now this particular body to issue accounting standards to be able to provide some rules or basically principles regarding recognition, regarding measurement, regarding presentation of such maybe asset and so on. So therefore, here we have a number of factors which can make now these particular stakeholders to require the existing standard to be revised, or requiring the International Accounting Standards Board to do what? To issue an accounting what? A standard. So therefore, we can look on the factors driving the revision or issue of an accounting standard. So here we are talking of some of the factors which may require the existing accounting standard to be revised, to be changed, or some of the factors which can lead to a recommendation by the various stakeholders for the International Accounting Standard Board to issue a new accounting what? A standard. So which are those, some of those particular factors? Number one, we can talk of changes. We can talk of changes in business environment. We can talk of changes in business environment. Changes in business environment. So when talk about the changes in business environment, this whereby we have some changes which are taking place in the business environment, like the technological changes, or maybe issues to do with globalization. And some of these particular changes may make the various stakeholders to recommend maybe the existing standard to be revised, or a new standard to be issued in order to address the emerging issues, in order to address the emerging what? Issues. So therefore, we can say that changes in business environment, such as technological advancement, issues to do with the globalization, may require revision of existing standards, or the issue of a new what? A standard. So these particular changes which are taking place in the business environment, like advancement in technology, issues to do with the globalization, and so on, we are seeing that these are some of the factors which can make now the stakeholders to recommend to the International Accounting Standard Board to do what? To issue a new accounting standard, or even to do what? To revise the existing ones. To do what? To revise the existing ones. So the other factor which can also lead to the same is what you refer as the regulatory requirements. So when talk about the regulatory requirements, this whereby we have changes by the regulatory bodies. So we have basically a number of regulatory bodies, like we have Capital Market Authority, which regulate the listed companies. We have, for example, CBK, which regulate now the banks. So those particular regulatory bodies can make some changes as far as the rules and regulations are concerned, as far as their rules and regulations are concerned, requiring now the International Accounting Standards Board to do what? To revise the existing standards, or even to do what? To issue a new one. So therefore here we can talk of the regulatory requirements. Regulatory requirements. And basically you have said that changes by regulatory bodies, e.g. CMA, that is Capital Market Authority, e.g. Central Bank, we can talk of a CBK, Central Bank, etc., may require existing standards to be revised, or even a new accounting standard to be issued, which will help the entities to comply with the new regulatory requirements by such regulatory bodies. So therefore, that is basically the other factor which can make now these particular stakeholders to recommend that the existing standard to be revised or a new standard to be issued. So the other factor which can also lead to the revision of the existing standards or a recommendation to be made for a new standard to be issued is what we refer as the emerging issues. We can talk of emerging issues and trends. Emerging issues and what? And trends. So when talk about the emerging issues, so these are the new issues which are emerging in the business environment and which are not yet addressed by the existing standards. And in this case, we have good examples of some of the emerging issues. I've mentioned something to do with cyber security. I've also mentioned something to do with digital currency, whereby, for example, you can have something called the digital currency in your phone and so on. So all these are emerging issues which are not yet addressed by the existing standards. So therefore, anytime we have such emerging issues like the cyber security issues to do with the digital currency, these require new standards to be issued. So therefore, we can say emerging issues, e.g. cyber security, digital currency, may require issue of a new standard, basically to guide the entities in terms of how to account for these emerging issues, in terms of how to measure and maybe recognize some of these particular emerging issues as far as or in their financial statement. So therefore, there is basically another factor which can lead now to the revision or a recommendation by the stakeholders that International Accounting Standard Board to do what? To issue a new standard. So then let's look on the other factor, which is number 4, and that is what we refer as a feedback from stakeholders. Feedback from the stakeholders. So when talk about the feedback from the stakeholders, we are talking of the input by the stakeholders. Or basically the feedback which will be given by the stakeholders. When talk about the stakeholders, these are the parties who are interested with the work of International Accounting Standard Board, or maybe those parties who may be using financial statements prepared by companies. So, and therefore, some of the stakeholders here may include, for example, accountants, may include the financial analysts, may also include the users of the financial statement. So all these particular stakeholders basically can recommend improvement, can recommend changes to be made as far as the existing accounting standards are concerned. So therefore, we can say input by stakeholders stakeholders, e.g. professionals or professional accountants. We can also talk of financial analysts. We can also talk of users of financial statements. Input by stakeholders, e.g. professional accountant, financial analysts, users of financial statement, etc., may call for a new standard, or basically the revision of the existing standard. So therefore, these are basically some of the main factors, or basically some of the main reasons which can make the International Accounting Standards Board to do what? To revise an existing accounting standard, or even to issue an accounting standard. For example, to be able to address some of the emerging issues. And maybe you can proceed and look on some of the areas whereby the stakeholders have recommended new accounting standard to be issued, and maybe some of the recommendations which have been made regarding regarding making some changes as far as the existing standards are concerned. Maybe you can start by looking on a recommendation to issue a new accounting standards. Recommendations to issue new accounting standards. So basically, we have a recommendation coming through from the various stakeholders for new accounting standards now to be issued to address some of the emerging issues. Some of the issues, or some of the emerging issues which have led to this particular recommendation include the following. Number one, we have something called the digital asset. When talk about a digital asset, this whereby, for example, you have money in or some cash in your phone. So basically, if you want to transfer that money, you don't have to withdraw it. For you to make payment, you can just make that particular payment using the money you have in your account. So the money you have in your M-Pesa account is a digital asset. Asset. Basically, there is no accounting standards which basically provide some guidance to the entities in terms of how to do to measure, to recognize, and also to present this particular digital asset in the financial asset. So we have the issue to do with the digital asset, and also what we refer as the cryptocurrency. So therefore, there is a recommendation by the stakeholders for the International Accounting Standard Board to issue a new accounting standard, basically to address these digital assets, and also the crypto currencies. We can talk of crypto currencies. So the other issue which has led now the stakeholders to recommend a new standard to be issued is issues to do with the climate-related disclosure. Climate-related disclosure. When talk about the climate-related disclosure, basically what we know is that most of the entities currently are required to comply with various environmental, that is climate and environmental rules and regulations. And basically for the entities to do that, they incur some expense and some expense, and also somewhat cost. But there is no accounting standards which has already been issued by the International Accounting Standards Board to help entities to do to account for such climate-related expenditures, and also cost. So therefore, there is a recommendation to issue a new accounting standard to address the same. So we also have issues to do with intangible assets. Asset. And basically what we know is that currently we have a growth of this, like majorly what we refer as the intellectual property. A lot of young people are creating some content which they are using in terms of generating revenue, and therefore there is no accounting standards which has already been issued basically to help, for example, entities to recognize, to measure such intellectual what? Property and so on. And therefore, these are some of the issues or some of the emerging issues which have led to recommendation by the various stakeholders that the International Accounting Standard Board need to issue a new accounting standard or new accounting standard to be able to address some of these particular issues. So that basically what we need to know as far as the proposal to do what? To revise or even update an existing standard, or a recommendation to issue a new accounting standard is what is concerned. So before we wait up, we have an assignment here. Question number 1 reads, explain factors that may drive revision of an existing accounting standard. Explain factors that may drive revision of an existing accounting standard. Number 2, highlight emerging issues that requires a new accounting standard. So that brings us to the end of that particular session. Let's meet in our next class as we discuss on the other subtopic.